Hello, and in this video we're gonna work on actually painting on the second screen. So far we have an app where we can select a color on the first screen, click the paint button, and it launches a second screen. And right now we use the color to color the background, so I'm gonna take that out, and then when I'm gonna use the click and drag in order to draw shapes and images on the second screen. So let's get right to it. But before we do that, just a reminder again, this part is extra credit, it's optional. So if you reach it where we are here, that's the only required part for this project. So let's go ahead and do that. So first, we need to do something on the second screen and the second controller. So from the color display view controller, I no longer need to do that, so I'm gonna take that out. So I no longer need to use the color to paint on the background. But I need to add a couple of variables. I need to define a canvas object. So I would say var canvas, and this will be of type UIImageView, and I will initialize this in the first screen. Then I want to have define the path object. So I can say var path, and I will define this to be a UIBezierPath object, and I will initialize it, and UIBezierPath has default initializer that just initializes a path. So I don't have to use the exclamation mark. So now that I give it initial value, I don't need to use the exclamation mark. The third one, define a variable for the brush size. So I will say var brush size equal 5. Let's start with 5. Sounds good so far? So for the canvas object, I need to initialize that in the first screen. The first screen is the initial screen. This is where we select the color. Then we transition to the second screen. Every time you make the transition, you get a new object of the second controller. It is not the same one. So when I click paint, I get a screen. When I click paint again, that is not the same screen I had previously. That's a completely different one. The first one is gone, disappeared. So the second screen does not persist between the different navigations. Every navigation has its own. So if I want to start a painting here, let's say I'm gonna paint with red, then go back, change the color to green, and go back here to add something else. That's a nice color, by the way. To add something else, I need to copy everything I did first to the first screen and then back. So I would draw something here, and when I click back, it is saved behind the scene. So when you go to a new one, it comes with you to that new screen. So that's why I want to initialize the canvas object not in the second controller, but in the first controller. So let's go ahead and do that. So come here and define a canvas object for the drawing. So I say var drawing. I'm just giving it a different name, UIImageView. Then when the view loads, I want to initialize the drawing canvas. So I say drawing canvas equal UIImageView, and we learned now to get initializers. I use the parentheses, so you can initialize just an image view, or you can initialize one with an image or with a specific size. In this case, I want to initialize it with a specific size because I want the size to reflect I want the size to reflect the full size of the phone, of the device. So the frame here, which is of type CG for core graphics rectangle, so I want that frame, which is the boundaries of the rectangle that the image view will hold, to be the same as the boundaries of the screen. So the boundaries of the screen, I already have the view. The view of the controller is already having that. So if I say view and then dot frame, the frame has a type rectangle, so I use that. So I'm saying initialize an image view with the same frame as the view. This view is a member of the controller that is automatically connected to the view on the screen. Now that I initialize the drawing canvas, I need to assign the canvas on the second controller to that drawing canvas. So I come here and say assign the canvas property in the destination to the drawing canvas. So I say destination dot canvas equal drawing canvas. So now the canvas is assigned and is initialized and maintained by the first screen and assigned to the second screen. So now I go back to the color display view control. I have the canvas initialized, but it's not connected to the view. So what I need to do when the view loads, I need to add the canvas object to the view. So I say view dot add, and they can add different things to the view, but one of them is subview. So I want to add a subview. And because the canvas is a UIImageView, it is eligible to be added as a subview for a view. So now I created the canvas and I added it to the subview. Notice that you're not going to see anything because the image view is invisible. It's a placeholder of an image. So unless there is an image inside it, you're not going to see anything. So what is the image that's going to be inside is whatever we created. So let's go ahead and create an image. Where would I get the image from? You want to draw an image from the points collected in the path. So how do I collect the points in the path? The first point, when the user touches the screen, I want to retrieve that. So to retrieve that, I want to listen to the first event when the user touches the screen. The UI view controller has the view, which has a function to recognize the touch. So if you start typing touch outside the boundaries of any other function, maybe I can put it here. I will fold the memory, and I don't really need this navigation, because it's commented out and I'm not going to use it. You can leave it, but for me, I don't want you to be confused of things that I'm not going to use. So I did something here in the view did load. I added several properties or variables for the class scope, or we call it instance variable. Then the other thing is I want to add the touch. So if you start typing touch, these are all the functions that are implemented for the touch. One is called touchesBegan and touchesMoved. TouchesBegan is the one that we will be notified when the finger first touches the view, and touchesMoved is the one will be recognized when the event move within the view. So the touch is not released. Once the touch ended, that's when the user releases the finger or lifted the finger. So we're going to be using the began in order to capture the very first instance of the touch, and then use the moved to capture when the touch moves and assemble all the points for the path. So double click on that, and Xcode adds the function definition for you, adds the override, the function, and everything. The function comes with two parameters. Touches, which is a set. Set is like the mathematical set, is a collection similar to the array of touches. The difference between a set is the set contains only unique unique object. So an object cannot be repeated inside a set. So each object is of type UITouch. So the UITouch class type, a library type, represent what a touch is. The set represents a collection of touches. So why are there collection of touches and not a single one? Because I don't know if the user going to touch the screen with one finger or two or three or four. If they put more than one, there will be different locations and different touches. Also, the screen resolution is extremely high than the size of the touch. So that when you put your finger on the screen, you're actually touching multiple locations or making maybe multiple touches there as well. So when we start, I need to first retrieve one single touch because I want one single location. So how do I retrieve that? All the touches that were recognized are assembled inside that collection. So I'll say let touch equal touches, which is the set, and then dot. What can I get from the set? You can get how many they are. You can get a first, which gives you the very first touch that happened. You can also get, if it's empty, you can remove. There are different things. I think the first is enough. It just gives me one touch. We are not picky here. Maybe you will do an application where you become very picky about which one. That's fine. Here I just want that first, so I get the first touch. Because the first touch comes back with exclamation mark, with question mark, add the exclamation mark at the end. So now I have a touch. What do I want to do with the touch? I'm really not interested in the touch itself. I want to retrieve the location because the location of the touch will represent a point. And that will be my starting point of the drawing. So let starting point equal. So now you got used to what I'm doing. I'm looking for the library to give me a piece of information, and then I'm assigning that piece of information to a memory location that I can then manage and use for another instruction. So I will say to the touch, which is the single touch, and say I want to get the location. So what can I do here? Maybe just type location. Yep, there is something called location in view. And then you want to provide which view you want to get to the location for. Because when you have multiple layers of view, the location is relative. So do you want to get the point relative to which origin? The origin of the view or a sub-view or whatever. Here I'm using my canvas as the drawing view. So I want to get it relative to the canvas. So now I got a starting point. So what do I want to do? Assign the starting point to the path. So I will say path dot. One of the things in the path is to move to points. So now I'm moving the path to a whole new point to start a whole new path, and this will be a starting point. So those three instructions that I provide to the processor when the touches began, the operating system will capture that touches happened, notifies this function touches began, and then executes these three instructions. First, get one single touch from the collection, get the location relative to the image view that is added as a layer on top of the view, and then use that location to move the path to a new point. That's all what I need to do when a touch starts. Now, the second event I want to respond to, and I want to move up a little bit here, is when the touch moves. So let's type again touch, and here is the second function, touch is moved. Double click, so Xcode can enter it. Don't type. I know some will try to type this whole line. You're gonna make mistakes. This is case sensitive, and if you make a single mistake, the compiler will give you error. So don't type. Don't type the entire definition. Just type the name of the function, and Xcode will recognize it. Double click and let Xcode write that for you. So what do I want to do when the touches move? I want to do two things. I want to first trace the points as the touch move, get the location and add it to my path, and then draw. So first I need to get the location as it moves, because as the finger moves on the screen, every time the finger moves from one point to the other, this function will be called. Now I want you to imagine that the resolution is high, so if you put your finger and just to move it a little bit, this function will be called. But the processor is very powerful, so it can call this function hundreds of times when you just move your finger maybe less than an inch up, and even thousands of times. You don't have to worry about that. But every time this function is called, you want to get the location. So how do I get the location? The same first two steps that I did before. So let touch equal touches, which is all the collections. Now this is a different collection. Notice this is another function. So each function module is an independent module. The touches that come here are different from the touches that come here, because when this function ends, the control goes back to the operating system, and the operating system only calls that second function when it needs it. So let touch equal touches dot first, add the exclamation mark, then let current point. So now this is not a starting point, it's our current point, but we're gonna get it from the touch location on view canvas. And then I need to move the path. So instead of saying move to point, I say add point, or add. So add, you can add a couple of things. You can add an arc with a center, you can add a curve to the point, you can add a quad curve to the point, or you can add a line to the point, depending on how you want to draw the line. I'm just gonna add a line, and because the resolution is extremely high, the lines will generate actually reasonable resolution for your line. But if you want to do something different, and I always talk about try different things. I don't want you to be frustrated, so if you're doing this last minute, I don't want you to be frustrated, but I want you to be curious and to explore on your own the different functions in the library. So I'll add a line to point and then current point. Yeah, here it is, current point. So now I got the location, and when the touch is moving, I got the. If I leave it like that, I'm constructing the path perfect, but all of this is happening in memory. You're not going to see anything. But we want to see. So to see, we want to turn the path into an image. So the second step I want to do is to start an image context and draw the path on it to make an image. So to start an image context, we're going to use a function, a global function called UIGraphicsBeginImageContext. So this creates an image. So this is how you dynamically inside your app create an image. So here we're going to create an image of our drawing. Maybe you're doing this for statistics, or you want to draw a curve, or draw a map, or draw a line, whatever it is. This is how you can draw an image and then use that image for something else. So UIGraphicsBeginImageContext, and it asks you what is the size. So what is the size of the image? I want to have a size similar to the size of my canvas. So I use the canvas and say I want the size, but the canvas doesn't have a size. But it has a frame, and then in the frame there is a size. So the canvas has a frame. The canvas doesn't have a size, but the frame has a size. So I access the frame of the canvas, and from there access the size. You may observe that when I say UI begin graphics begin image context, that's probably there's an end. So let's see, UI graphics end image context. Yep, there is an end image context, because you're going in memory and saying, I want everything that happens in between, I want it to happen within that context. So there need to be limits to the context. So here is the end. Inside, between the begin image context and end image context, that's when we want to draw. So to draw, I need to set the brush size. I need to set the color, and then I need to draw. So for the brush size, this is a property of the path. BezierPath can set that. So I say path.line_width. And there are a lot of properties in the BezierPath to help you customize the brush that you're gonna draw with, or the fill, and so on. So here is the line width, and we're gonna say the line width equal the brush size. Xcode immediately complained, and you probably may have noticed, the line width has a type CG float, but the brush size, when you see it, it has a type int. But I did not specify a type for it. But because I used a number without a decimal, Swift automatically assigned the type, infers the type from the number. So it inferred that it is a non-decimal number. I can create a CG float out of that. So maybe I can just say CG float and brush size. Then I want to set the color. So we set the color from the color itself. So I will say painting color dot set. And there are two things you can set in the painting color. Set fill. Remember, the BezierPath construct a path made out of all the points you assembled. You can strike a line connecting these points, or you can fill an area that is bounded by those points. So if you want to color the area, you use set fill. If you want to color the stroke, then you use set a stroke. Maybe you can do both. And this is another thing you can do. You can set the stroke with a certain color, and then, or maybe fill it with the color that the user select, and maybe put a boundary on it, or a stroke with a different color, or something like that. So you can play with that. Also, one of the changes you can do yourself. For me, I'm just going to do a line, so set a stroke. Finally, paint. So to paint, I go to the path and say stroke. So if you want to stroke a line, you just say stroke. If you want to fill, then you say fill. You can also fill with blend mode. If you're familiar with colors, you can kind of blend the colors and fill with a blended mode instead of filling with just one color. I'm going to do a stroke. So here is the stroke. So now I got the image that I need, and the image is created, but you cannot see the image. Why can't you see the image? Because the image is in memory. So how can we see it? I need to retrieve the image and assign it to the image property of my canvas. So assign the image to the image property of the canvas. So I will say canvas.image equal. And then how can I retrieve the image from the graphics context? I ask the graphic context. So get image from current image context. It retrieves the image with a type UIImage, which is the same type that the image property of the canvas requires. So whatever image created in memory, this function will retrieve that image and assign it to the canvas image. This is very good and will work, hopefully. The one step that is missing here is that, remember, I told you that one of the problems is when you move from one screen to the other, you're gonna lose whatever you created. So to guarantee that I don't lose it, before I assign the image and draw on it, I want to, if that image, if the canvas is already has an image, I want to draw that image first. So the first step in the graphics to draw the image is to draw the existing image of the canvas. If this is the first time, the canvas is empty, so nothing will be drawn, but every time after that, there's something already there in the canvas. So I would say canvas.image draw, and it says draw in rectangle. So I would say I want to draw the image in a rectangle. So which rectangle? I want to draw it in the rectangle made by the frame of the canvas. The question mark is added because the image is an optional variable, and it is important. You can read about that if you're interested. If you're a beginner, accept what Xcode has added. Swift programming language is has very strict type rules, but it has a lot. Xcode has a lot of help to help manage that for you. The reason it has those strict type rules is to, as much as possible, prevent mismanagement of the memory of the device. So now I added what I need to do. So this will happen every time the touch is moved. You may say, I don't want to draw the image when the user moves the finger, I want to draw it at the end. But in this case, the finger will be moving without anything that you see. So let's see if this will work or if we missed anything. So the view is not going to change. We have a color, and then you click paint. It's the white screen. Now let's touch and move. Wow, it worked. So as you touch and move, this function is called. I did not release, so I'm connecting the same path. Now I released, and I'm gonna go and connect another one. Let's go back and maybe change the color and paint. So when I return back, that line here, line 48, it drew what the canvas already had. Because this canvas is initialized or by the canvas in the view controller, the drawing canvas, everything you do in that memory is synchronized with the memory of the view controller, in the view controller, the drawing canvas. So when you launch the screen again and reassign it, you're reassigning the whatever you have already done. So I come here and draw something else, and then maybe I can say hello to all of you. I am not really good in drawing, as you can see, but I'm sure you all can do great things with this. One of the things that you can also do is how to save this to the what's it called, man, I'm drawing blank, to the photo library of your screen, of your device. So this is an image. You can add a button here, and when you click that button, it opens a function, and from that function you can save the image to the photo library. There is a function, UIGraphicsWrite or write image, UIImage write to photo library, something like that, that you can use in order to draw into a library. I'm not gonna do it here. UIGraphicsWrite UIImageWrite to saved photo album. Here it is, UIImageWrite to saved photo album. You can't do it from the touchesMoved because it's gonna be like saving every instant. You're gonna get like thousands of images, but you want to add an event, so you add a button here that says save, and when you click on that button, you connect it to a function, to an action function, and inside that action function, that's when you call the save to the photo library. So that's the extra credit part or the optional part of the app, and that concludes our module number 2. I hope you enjoyed, and talk to you on module 3.